Welcome to the Mediate Your Life podcast. I'm your host, John Kinyon. On the show, I guide guests through challenges and conflicts in their personal and work lives, and in their experience of the larger social political world. The Mediate Your Life approach helps people bridge differences and heal divides using principles and processes based in empathic communication, a mediation framework, and mindfulness. Each conversation is a forum for learning and healing, not only for the guests, but also for the podcast listeners. In this episode of the Mediate Your Life podcast, I'm joined by Jovanka Beckles, a political candidate running for California State Senate. Jovanka shares her inspiring journey from mental health professional to political leader, driven by a deep commitment to healing communities and addressing systemic inequalities. We explore the challenges of running a corporate-free campaign and the emotional toll of political conflict. Using Mediate Your Life principles, we walk together through the emotional landscape of Jovanka's relationship with those who may not support her platform, demonstrating how empathy and compassion can transform our approach to political differences. This episode offers a powerful blend of personal story, political insight, and practical conflict resolution tools. It showcases how the same empathic approaches that can heal personal relationships can also bridge wider societal divides. I hope you find it as moving and enlightening as I do. Okay, I am here with Jovanka Beckles, and I'm so grateful for your presence in the world and what you're up to, what you're standing for, what you're doing, and which we'll get into, and just that you're willing to come do this with me. We have the connection through our late son, Kabir, who passed away fairly recently and quite tragically. And he was a huge lover of you and your work, and he just couldn't say enough positive things about you. And so it's just really a delight to have you here on the podcast. And you are currently on the board of AC Transit here in the Bay Area, the East Bay, and are running for state senate. So very exciting, your work in the political world. And yeah, and we in a bit, we'll get into a situation, a conflict of some kind that we'll kind of work through together. And you can, let certain parts of your self shine through there so people can connect with you on multiple levels. But would you like to say a bit about, both what you're doing now, if anything more about that you want to say, and then a little bit about your story and how you got to this point?
Thank you so much, John. I appreciate the opportunity to come and be in space with you and your audience. So grateful to have our paths cross through Kabir. Feeling absolutely mutual. He was an incredible human being, beautiful, beautiful soul. And continues to be dearly missed. But I know that his spirit is always present in so many different ways that I often acknowledge. I am, as you mentioned, current AC Transit board member. Before that, I ran and came in second place for California State Assembly. We were, it was a wonderful, beautiful coalition, diverse coalition of community members, and we came really close. And before that, I was a 2-term Richmond City Council member. Throughout all of that, while doing all that, I was a full-time mental health professional. I worked with as a children's mental health professional, doing wraparound services, it's a wonderful service and resource for children and families. And it's based on, it has a strength-based approach to addressing the needs of the child and family, understanding the fact that services can be provided to a child and help them to heal, help them to be able to be redirected in positive ways. But if they have to go home and those challenges, remain at home, then it's all for naught. So with wraparound, everyone is a part of the healing space, a part of the resources to uplift them all, so that, in particular, the child can shine. So I did that for 23 years as a children's mental health services. Yes. And then before that, I actually was a mental health provider for adults. And the reason I decided to start working with children was I felt that I could be more effective working with children. Because first of all, I love children. I love kids. And I see them as the future. And I know that, if they can, and when they do get the healing that they need and deserve, then they can grow up to be productive, individuals, community members, all that. And I would say the reason why I even got into this political arena was based on my work with children. I did individual therapy. I did group therapy, lots of mentoring in addition to the wraparound services. So, hearing from parents and grandparents and family members, the struggles that they were having. So many of those struggles were things that we as a wraparound facilitator, as mental health providers couldn't really touch, and resources that they needed were dwindling more and more and more. They weren't able to maintain housing. So many of the families that I worked with were couch surfing, trying to save up first, last, and deposit, which to many people, even living in California, making probably 75, even at least $75,000 would have a big challenge in doing, because you're talking about $9,000 to be able to move into an apartment. And so watching the struggle, seeing those struggles, hearing from the babies that I worked with, being hungry, some of them only having one meal, and that was the meal they had at school. So much, hearing them talk about their parents who had been, incarcerated, coming back into the community. And then next thing you know, they were back, and the pain that was, causing the child, really motivated me. It wasn't until my wife and I were coming home from, at the time, one of my part-time gigs was DJing. And so I love DJing. And so I DJed parties, weddings and such. And we were coming home late one night. This is when we first moved here. So about 2005. And when we're coming in, we were the victims of armed, home invasion. And our son was still living with us at the time. He had just graduated from high school. And, the trauma that was to me was, unforgettable. And my son doesn't talk about it much, but I know it was for him as well. But it wasn't until they came through our home, held a gun to me and at my wife, and then later at our son, when they went to his room to gather the things, their loot, so to speak. They looked around his room. He had a little pet rabbit. He had his guitar that he liked playing. He had his video games. He just looked, I guess, like what they felt their life should look like. But they looked around the room, John, and they said, wow, it must be nice to be loved. Just like that. And as terrified as all of us were, they said that. And, I won't go through the story of how we finally just said, hey, look, you've gotten all the things that you want. We don't know what you look like. You can just leave us and go about your business. We're not going to call the police. And so they left. But that was the pivotal moment that I decided that our children, when they have no hope, when they are feeling hopeless, when they are hurt and feeling the need to hurt others, we're going to continue this mad cycle of violence and hurt and hurt and hurt. So that moment helped me to realize that no matter how much I provide services for these babies and their families, what was needed was policy changes, right? So we live in a society that tends to provide policies that benefit, the billionaire class, that benefit corporations. But many of the policies weren't benefiting our babies. They weren't benefiting the families. And so I was motivated by that. A community member said, Jovanka, you should run for city council. And I gave it some thought, and I said, maybe this is what our children need. So I'll do that. It's going to be hard working full time, running for office. And in some cases, right, working full time, being in office and running for office, it's so incredibly difficult. But I remain focused because of the goal that I have to heal my community and be a servant to my community, provide them with the resources that they need. So when I was elected to city council, the first thing I did, along with the community, in fact, nothing that I do is on my own. It's always obtaining input and feedback from what the community needs. And so, but also in my lived and worked experience, I saw what the babies, the children, the families were needing. So the very first policy that I wrote was called Ban the Box. And Ban the Box is called, it's a fairness in employment. And what it is it allows formerly incarcerated individuals to be able to gain employment. Simple as that. There was a time when that question was on the box of employment applications. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? And so, when people check that box, it's over. It's over. And so now you're forcing people to do things that they may not want to do in order to survive. And so we banned the box, and that was gained Richmond national attention for its innovation and its progressiveness, its forward-thinkingness, its ability to reduce recidivism. We gained national attention for that. The next thing I did, again, understanding the struggles of the families and the children that I worked with, is we raised the minimum wage. The minimum wage in Richmond was raised to the highest in the state of California to enable families to survive and buy food and do the things that they need to do. And then following that, together again with the community, we were the first city in 30 years in California to pass a rent control policy. And so there's so much more that we were able to do, taxing Chevron and using that money to provide college scholarships to our young people. The list goes on, John, but I think that just kind of shows where and why I even got into politics in the first place. And it's why I remain in this arena, because I believe that we need individuals. I think we need people with a heart. We don't need people who are controlled by corporate machines that has no heart, right? We need people who believe in the community and believe in a clean, thriving planet, clean, thriving communities, safe communities. In fact, it's because of these policies that myself and my colleagues on the city council, when we were elected as corporate-free candidates, and John, that's the key, really. That's the key for change. We have to collect people who are not taking money, who are not beholden to corporations, and who are solely beholden, right, and accountable to the community. That's it. So when we started electing these kinds of public servants on the Richmond City Council, we started doing these kinds of things. And as a result of addressing the root causes of crime, we were able to reduce crime. And now Richmond is no longer on the top 10 worst cities to live in, or crime, with the highest crime. That's what we were able to do. And then I ran for assembly in order to do that and take a lot of these policies to the state level, because many of the policies that we're able to do on a municipal level, unfortunately, doesn't apply to private sector and such. So came close to that. But when I ran for AC Transit, again, with this corporate-free message that we can have the resources we want as working class people, as workers, I was able to win. And in fact, it was all of the policies that not all of them, but three of them in particular, that gained AC Transit, that helped earn AC Transit the top public transportation system in the country for 2023. And those policies were, and this is listening to the workers. They needed to feel safe, putting protective barriers on all of the buses. And then during the pandemic, providing PPE, protective personal equipment for not just the workers, but also the riders. And then also providing them with appreciation pay. All of the workers in AC Transit, union workers, were able to get between $2,000 and $4,000 because they were essential workers, and they had to get up every day when most of us were able to do our job, including me, on video. I was able to have my therapy sessions and group sessions and stuff on video. They had to get up every day. And so providing them with that appreciation pay, so good for morale. But that didn't come easily either. That was organizing with the union, ATU 192. And we went to San Francisco, demanded that the Metropolitan Transportation Commission release these emergency funds that are there for a rainy day. And I can't think of a more rainier day than a pandemic, right? And so they released it, and we were able to utilize that money to show appreciation for the workers. So now I'm running for California State Senate because, as I mentioned, it's so important to reelect people to create, because of our who have this lived experience as a Black, Latina, gay, immigrant woman. I represent all of the marginalized communities that, pretty much, right? Black, Latina, queer, immigrant, woman. And I think that this is what our state needs. We need representation that reflects the diversity of the state, but especially the diversity of this district. We need people who are on bought, who are not taking money from corporations. My opponent is taking so much money. In fact, he's raised over $1 million, and majority of that money came from corporations, came from big developers who want to disregard policies and entities like CEQA so that they can just build and build and build. And that's what's happened in Berkeley. They built and built. Unfortunately, it's market rate housing, and most people can't afford it. We're still seeing a rise in homelessness. My opponent would argue that Berkeley has dropped in the amount of homelessness that they have, but that's only because they have rounded them up and kicked them out. And so, of course, where are they going to go? They're going to go to neighboring cities. And so that's obviously not something that any mayor of a city should be proud of. But when elected officials take money from corporations, community suffers greatly because we don't get the resources and the support that we need. So I'm wrapping this up. I believe that when we elect corporate-free candidates, we can get the things we need, right? And what we need is a universal healthcare system, right? Everyone deserves healthcare, regardless of their employment status or immigration status. If you're here and you're sick, you should be able to get help. We deserve a universal childcare system where folks who are working, especially people who can't afford childcare. Again, from my work experience, I saw it. I saw people having to call in because they couldn't get childcare, or they couldn't afford it anymore for the rest of the month, which is, ridiculous, because now that takes people into a tailspin of I can't work because I have no childcare, because I can't afford childcare. And so now I have no money because I can't work. And then, and the cycle continues. And then they eventually either, are fired from their job or have to quit and try to find family members. So we need universal health care for everyone. We need a system in the fourth largest economy in the world. We need a system where we can, any student who wants to get a higher education can, any person who wants to get training, because, college isn't for everyone, right? Who wants to get training can just get trained in the building trades, in electrical, in anything. They can get that paid for them, and don't have to worry about whether or not they have the money. We need an infrastructure that supports the future, and we need it to be green. And so I support a Green New Deal. I believe that that everyone deserves to have shelter. And so we have to build more affordable housing. We have to fund it. And we absolutely have to fund public transportation if we're going to get people out of their cars. So that's just a little bit about me. And I truly appreciate you giving me the opportunity to just go on and on and on.
Well, I love hearing you talk about all this. It's so really moving, because I really feel that you're speaking from your heart, from real sincerity, and coming out of your own lived experience of working so closely with with individuals and then children and families, and working in the system where often those resources weren't fully
Exactly.
there. But the when you talked about the wraparound, I really got this image of like how important the whole community is to work together, and that you could really feel where that was missing, and then experiencing directly the kind of the trauma or the violence of people's needs not being met and being desperate. It was so poignant when you talked about what one of those probably boys or young men said about not being loved, right? And so it even goes down to that level of, if people are struggling so much with financial and economic and those kind of material needs, struggling so much, then the ability to be loved, to have the presence, to be cared for and taken care of by parents. And so anyways, it's just really so moving that I really feel you coming out of that, such a heart place and such a vision of what's needed. And it's, as you talk, it gives me hope, right? That like, yeah, I mean, that is the politics that we need. And now we see so much that is about all this other stuff. It's like you said, the corporate influence is massive, and money and profiteering and just when you talk, I just hear such like, of course, like it makes so much sense. It's so obvious. Like government and politics is about taking care of people's needs, everybody's needs, right? Everybody's needs, and not letting other things take precedence over that. And I just love that you're dedicating your whole life to that. It's really moving to me. So
Thank you so much. It that makes a difference. It makes such it touches my heart to see that my heart is coming through, because I think that my sincerity sometimes, I think, can be taken as a weakness, but I really see it as a strength. It's a strength that we need, and it's a strength that I try to share and teach, well, with the young people that I mentor.
my hope is that we're at a time now where more and more people are just waking up to like, yeah, what you're talking about is exactly what we need. And so many people, even if they're more well off or have money, they don't want to see people suffering and homeless or just struggling. So, right, everybody wants to, I think, wants to feel good about the society for all of us. And then I think your message, I hope, is really, it's going to be, I hope, just so much receptivity. Yeah, here in California, but I hope around the U.S., around the world, that we're just, don't want to do this, what we've been doing. That's so
Right.
dysfunctional and unhealthy and contributing to so much violence in the world and so much poverty on so many levels, not just the material poverty, right? But the emotional well-being poverty, right? And psychological well-being. So, yeah, I'm hoping that your message is just perfectly timed for what the world is waking up to. Like, okay, enough of this way that we don't have these universal basic needs getting met that could be. And if we just prioritize it. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks.
but I do imagine that kind of transitioning, or giving a kind of way to transition potentially, that in relating to all the forces arrayed against you, and maybe more the politics of that you've been talking about of for the people of all levels of society, and that you come up against a lot of adversities and difficult individuals that you face, or groups, and maybe a certain kind of financial interests and corporate interests. And you mentioned Chevron, and there's, I'm sure, many that you have and currently are facing kind of a lot of difficult behaviors and things that are being said and done to you and other colleagues, I imagine. And in my work, we can focus on those sort of external challenges and conflicts and how to kind of navigate. And I have some things I can offer from my approach that we can kind of play with. But then there's also there's on the inner level, just working internally with those things. And sometimes it's internally how to respond, Sometimes it's internally just parts of yourself that might feel in conflict about the different ways to go, different ways of trying to handle things, and sometimes being torn or not so clear. So we can look at what I call internal mediation, mediating between parts of self, or how you're internally relating to the challenges of the external world, or the actual like engaging with difficult, individuals or situations. So when I say all that, is there something that comes to mind that would just be like helpful for you to work with me, sort of accompany you and offer a bit of a framework and a way to walk through one of those challenges?
There are a few. One thing I think we talked about before was just people voting against, their own self-interest, like I would say, so like Trump supporters, people who are just feeling hateful. And my wife and I talk about, it's like, man, these people, they're so racist. And she said, well, maybe they're not exactly racist. Some of them may not really consider themselves that. And so dealing with that. But John, as you started talking, I started thinking about people who look at, for example, this race between myself, who's corporate free, and a candidate who is corporate funded, someone who like me, who has worked for 34 years, in the service industry, serving folks, providing resources, helping people to heal for 34 years, versus someone who is, in essence, a career politician. And seeing that and actually coming to understand. So I think for me, I don't get it. I don't understand. If we see the struggles in society, why sometimes we can't see when people are being honest and people who are not being honest, right? And so sometimes people determine who they're going to support based on who is the most articulate, right? And as opposed to who is really serving in the trenches, loving community, versus those who are simply in it for themselves and to get, their own power, and to just be able to get to the next level in this, in this hierarchy of power, versus someone who's trying to bring power, not for myself, but power for us as community, for the people. And so I just sometimes am so perplexed. And to be honest, John, most of the time I'm hurt because I don't understand, what is happening, where sometimes folks, what am I either doing or not doing? And sometimes I attribute it to, look at me, right? Black, dark skinned woman with dreadlocks versus someone who's not, and then I think, well, is racism playing a part in these decisions? That, right? Because as Black women, we're often seen as not the most intelligent in the room. We're often seen as not the most articulate in the room, even though we are. Oftentimes, we're often seen as not looking professional, not looking professional enough. And, and the list goes on and on and on and on. I mean, even me, like my opponent has been a career politician. He graduated from college, ran for city council, ran for mayor, now running for state senate. That's a career politician. That's not someone who cares about the community, right? That's not someone who cares about bringing collective power. So why is it sometimes that this is what we talk about, people voting against their own self-interest? Because it isn't just in, say, like Republican Party and the MAGA bunch. Sometimes it's happening also within the Democratic Party, where people are voting against their own self-interest based on a whole bunch of other career politicians who are supporting my opponent, as opposed to looking to see, okay, who is supporting this person? Looks like a whole lot of grassroots organization. Looks like a whole lot of community folks who have doing the work to make better communities. So I'm hurt oftentimes. I'm hurt by comments. Again, as a Black woman, I have worked 3 jobs, oftentimes running for office, being in office, and working full time. My opponent has had it real easy, smooth sailing. And it's hurtful when my hard work, dedication, and love is in some circles ignored, not appreciated. That's painful sometimes. Not sometimes. It's painful all the time.
Yeah, I can really get that. So maybe let me just say back what I'm hearing, that when you think of, I mean, there's certain probably people very economically to benefit from the person you're running against, and it makes sense maybe that they'd support. But then when you look at other people or organizations that you might think would be similar to what you stand for, but then supporting a candidate like the one that's you're running against, that the hurt, the pain about seeing what you stand for and what you're running for, and that for them and for their interests. And why would some people that do end up voting for someone like that, why would they do that, when what you're running for is to care for everybody's needs? So it just it sounds like it like doesn't make sense in some levels. And also there's a pain about of how you want to be seen and appreciated for what you're offering and what you're giving, and how hard you've worked to be able to try to give to the state and to the world what your vision is and what you care about. And yeah, so yeah, maybe we could take, there might be a particular person or some that you wouldn't need to say, but just you might have somebody in mind, particularly, or maybe more just generally, that as you talk about, right? But we could sort of work with, I mean, my work is about bringing empathy and compassion to both sides of something. So to you, and to maybe just someone that maybe in your mind represents somebody who would vote for someone like that, even though you're trying to run to meet their needs
Yes.
and what you see them caring about, right? So what I found is if we can bring empathy and compassion to both sides where it's really difficult, because I'm guessing you like to be able to do that, but sometimes it's really hard when we're feeling angry or hurt,
Right.
or right, not
Right.
understanding things. It's easy for all of us to sometimes just kind of have judgments or negative images. And this is just a process to kind of work through that, because then what can come out of that is this opening into other ways of responding to those people, because you're like that open-heartedness that you have can just shine through in a way that maybe it's a different way, that if you're not carrying that pain in the same way. So anyways, that's just a possibility that can come from doing
I
this.
like it.
And but it starts with you getting real deep empathy for your experience, and then seeing about empathy for the other, that isn't about agreement, but just about
Yes.
um,
Yes.
just about trying to kind of connect with, and you've probably done a fair amount of thinking about that, but if sometimes doing it together with a certain framework can go even further in a way that might support you when you're interacting or messaging towards those kind of people, those constituents. And so the idea that could support you, yeah, and could feel a little lightening, because carrying that pain is hard, right? So often there can be a kind of inner just easing and feeling a little bit more peace inside doing that work, and then you can often kind of different actions kind of flow from it too. So if that sounds okay, does that sound all right
That
to do?
sounds okay. That sounds okay. And I do want to ask for to let you know, and those watching and listening. Pardon me. I have to carry my napkin, my Kleenex with me, because allergies are so bad. So my eyes water a lot. So just so you know.
Yeah, we'll just kind of see where it goes. It can be open ended where we end up, but just like moving through that process together, there's a sort of overarching framework of the two sides, you and the other, and then this third side, which out of my tradition is mediation. But the third side to me represents the place of basically of love, of what heals and unifies our differences and divides. And so that, I think that's in each of us. And it's just about sort of finding that place, and that maybe that higher place that we connect up to, and bring that into this. So let's yeah, start with, again, with you and empathy for your experience, and maybe just go right to the hurt, and as just an emotion that is connected to things you really care about, right? So first, though, sometimes we go really quickly to the meaning of things, and it can help to slow down a little bit and just sort of tune into the felt experience of in this case hurt and any other emotions or physical sensations that are there. It just kind of slows it down, so you kind of really connect attention and awareness into the body. So if you do that right now, when you think about, this certain person or people that might vote in this particular way, um, how you feel in this moment, what do you, any physical sensations that go with that pain or that hurt, or what else comes when you focus on your body?
I feel, heartbeat increases. It's sort of the whole body, but my head almost like, like a throbbing, like a headache, like, and I can see why people sometimes say, oh my gosh, that's giving me a headache. I stop. This is way too much. I do, because I think I'm feeling it's just an overwhelm, that of the physical reaction to all that.
Yeah. So in your head and your heart,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you can
Mm-hmm.
kind of feel the intensity of this, and we'll go kind of even deeper into what that's connected to, of what matters to you, that is you've mentioned it, but we'll go even further into that. But just to linger with that for a moment, the sensations, and there's I'm thinking too, to say here to the audience, to people listening, like, I think it takes a lot of courage for in your role right now and what you're doing, to be vulnerable, and I think it's a powerful modeling of people in leadership roles willing to be vulnerable with their actual experience, because, like, we all feel these things, right? And some people don't feel safe enough to even talk about it, but, like, to me, it's real, and it connects us. It connects you to yourself, but also to people listening. You're a real human being with real feelings, right? And that there's something very trustworthy about, like, people who feel and people who care, right? So as you feel into these sensations and emotions right now, see if there are any others, any other feelings that come up, or maybe just what you said, to just kind of maybe check.
Yeah, well, when I think about it, my initial reaction has been and tends to be in the moment now. Initially, anger. Um, I mean, and but I don't like staying in anger. And when I stop and think about why, how easy it is and easier it is to just be angry, than it is to just be like, I am hurt. I'm hurt. I'm hurt when I see, for example, as I think back in even like 2018, where we had all of the different issues around, police brutality and killing Black folk. When I would see someone with a yard sign that said, Black Lives Matter, and then right next to it, my opponent, who was a white woman, her sign, and I'm thinking, what the heck is this? What the hell, right? Is all that about? That's insulting. Then I go to from anger to hurt, because similar things happens now. And then when I go to hurt, I don't like it, because then it makes me feel sadness, which then of course leads to depression. You get depressed. It's hard to do anything. It's hard to feel motivated. So I don't want to or like to stay there. And one of the ways that I found to get past that is I then go to forgiveness. Because I really believe that, the saying that forgiveness it's not about them, it's about me. It's not because it's about my peace, and I really treasure my peace. And so when I'm able to say, you know what, I forgive them, then I do feel, even now, I feel this sensation of peace, of just, breath, breathing out, and feeling the weight, fall from my shoulders and fall from my head and just falls. When I remember that it's about my peace, not them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And what my intention is to support going even deeper into that peace and forgiveness. And it's just a kind of a way to get there, that in addition to the way you already are able to. But if it's okay, because we will, that's the intention, to get even more fully there if possible, to support that. But I just want to repeat back what I heard you say about this kind of flow or cycle of emotions in you, that there's anger that can sometimes come first, the anger, but then when you really look underneath that, or you really feel into the anger, you sense underneath that is the hurt and the pain. And then also connected to that, maybe, or deeper, is sadness, and getting heavy with the sadness, and even that depressed feeling. So all these different emotions, just that can be difficult and uncomfortable. And my experience, though, is, if we, and probably yours in the mental health field, if we can feel those things with receptivity, right, with presence, with warm, compassionate, kind of loving presence, that this part of us can bring to these painful feelings. Yeah. So I'll just invite you in this moment, if you'd like, just to kind of bring that presence within yourself to all those feelings: the anger, the hurt, the sadness, the sensations in your head and your heart, and just like be with them, and that kind of really feeling the depths of that you're willing to feel, just as a kind of honoring of you, honoring of your body, honoring of what those feelings are connected to. So yeah, if you want, just take a moment, maybe breathe into that, kind of creating some space there just for those feelings to be. And then there's, I think, of kind of this going even deeper to the feelings. One way to look at these kind of any feelings is they're telling us about things we care about, the needs that we have as human beings,
Mm-hmm.
and as living beings of this planet. So when and you've already been saying it in what you said previously, just to connect the dots a bit with, as you're saying now, as we really focus on these feelings for you, connecting them very directly to what you care about, what your needs are, that we all have. So it's kind of like our needs, in a way, that these feelings are sort of rising out of, because it's like the communication from our unconscious, yeah, through our feelings. What would you say in this moment you're feeling this way because of certain values and needs that are so deep and important to you and to all of us? What would you say in this moment?
It comes from a place of feeling that there's enough to share. There's enough to share. There's no need for anyone, and there's no need to hoard anything. We don't see that in the animal kingdom. They don't hoard. They don't take more than they need. And so it comes from a place of me feeling like, we no matter how little we all have, there still is enough to share. But especially if we have so much, why not share that? Why not share those resources? It comes from a place of, for me, I think, justice, where I feel like, it's always been something that I have always felt that, I've always defended those who, people who were picked on, who, I was that kid on the playground that, you know, stood up to bullies when I saw them bullying other people. And I never thought about how I could have gotten hurt. It just was not a thought in me. It was because that's not right. And so this sort of in this innate, this deep sense of like always right. It's always the right time. There's never a wrong time to want to defend what's right in the world. So it comes from that. It just comes from always wanting to provide people with what they need for happiness.
Yeah, let me just reflect that back to you. So one need there is sharing, like such a deep sense of like the beauty almost of like when we humans or people, we share with each other, like how beautiful that is. Especially if there's an abundance and there's wealth, but right. But even if there isn't, how beautiful when we share, when we're right, and when we hear stories of people even in desperate situations sharing with each other and taking care of each other. So that's like the anger and the pain and the sadness comes out of such a deep need that we humans all can tap into, right? And in one way or another, this value of sharing and caring for one another, right? Sharing the whatever abundance, whatever we can to care and support one another. So there's that need, and then this need for justice, the justice, and that there's the deep pain of seeing injustice, and so much wanting ever since you were, sounds like very small, that you wanted to fight for that and take risk for that. And so there's this intense emotions coming out of this, such a deep sense of justice for wanting, again, everybody to matter, everybody's needs to
Everybody
be
to
cared
matter.
about,
Yes,
right? Nobody to
yes.
get oppressed and bullied or whatever, like treated as less than, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
So justice, and then I think you just, I said the last one was about that. I think just this need for everybody's well-being in a way. I don't know if you said it
Yes,
exactly like that.
perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
That's it. That's right.
Okay. So as we connect kind of just together, I think there's something about doing it together, and you're being vulnerable and you've shared your feelings, and now we're connecting your feelings to these deep human needs, and we're doing it together in a kind of relational space, right? You're allowing me to accompany you, and I can feel those things with you. How is it right now to name these things and share them with me? And how are you feeling right now?
John, you have a way you have this very nurturing, kind way of being. And so I feel, even though it's vulnerable, I feel vulnerable, but I feel like this is a safe place. I feel supported, like someone who, when someone has a hard time, you will, like, say, walking or whatever, it's like, okay, I need to walk over here, but I'm having a hard time walking. I feel like, okay, I've got someone here that I can just, put my arm around and we're just going to do this together.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me feel safe, and makes me feel appreciated and heard. And yes.
Yeah. Cool. I'm so glad. So now maybe just check inside you to see if there's a permission in a way, or a yes. And if there isn't, that's totally fine, because we can sort of stay with of these feelings, these needs in you. And sometimes that just needs enough attention in order to open to. But what I'll just invite you to check is the shift now, possibly, to empathy for this person or kind of set of people maybe in your mind, whoever you've been thinking of to empathize without agreeing. So obviously you don't agree with, we call this strategies, the ways of thinking, the ways of acting. There are things there that you, right, are related to what we just talked about. And yet there's also, there are human beings like us. They also have feelings and they have needs that really, in a way, we all do. We all share. So again, this kind of walking with you and just exploring that for you, like you said about the forgiveness, if for you to feel this peace or compassion, like to feel understanding, and without needing to agree with their maybe actions or so that's sometimes difficult to separate that out. But, and I'm guessing you've thought about it some intellectually, but this is to kind of go there in an emotional way, to kind of connect to this person or people that you have in mind, so that you almost like feel their feelings and their needs, even though you disagree with their ways of meeting those needs, right? So, do you feel in you an opening towards that, or maybe not yet?
No, I do. I definitely do. Yes.
Again, you've been alluding to it a bit, maybe, but people who might vote in this particular way or be have done it or might do it in this election time. What do you think they're kind of thinking, their mindset and their emotional space, and what needs are they meeting that we all have, but in a different way than maybe you would want? So what do you think is going on? Just tuning in, especially to what they might be feeling and needing.
Wow. That's a really good question. And I'm not sure, thinking about it. What do they need? I think maybe they are scared. I think they're scared that maybe the little bit or the bit that they have will be taken from them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to feel like they have to take care of everyone, and so supporting someone like me, I think they feel that they're ignored because I'm only thinking about maybe poor people and
who have
working
less.
class people,
Mm-hmm.
people who have less. Right. They don't want what they, and so that's the first thing that comes to my mind, that
Fear.
that it may be just fear motivating.
So they might be thinking that, oh, you're caring more about those people that aren't me, that have less, and that maybe they might be thinking, well, I don't want to lose too much, something like that, and that like some fear of something being taken from them, or losing
Yes.
something that's precious, or somehow going into a place of not enough or lack or something like that.
Yes.
So even if it's maybe logically not very likely, but it sounds like maybe you're imagining at some emotional level some just fear that comes up that you might represent of kind of some taking away from them in a way that's scary, that actually might be scary. Even if they might not be conscious of it, at some level, maybe just brings up fear of not being okay, not having enough, even though they might have a lot. Yeah.
Or losing
power,
but all
but
that.
in a way that is scary, somehow is scary, that something would be taken away or not have that feels important. So what would that need be? The need for kind of safety or security?
Yes. Absolutely. Safety and security. And, and that's why I when people talk about, the first thing that comes to my mind when you say safety is, especially in this arena, people thinking that, I don't support, bringing on more police to keep them safe, right? When it comes to that type of security and safety. And then, but to that, I remind people of the fact that, studies has shown that more police doesn't equal safety. right? What brings safety to communities is providing
People's
those with
needs.
less people's
Yeah.
needs. That's what
Yeah.
brings safety, not more police. Because if that were the case, I think about New York, for example, they have $1 billion. I think LA as well, $1 billion police budgets, and yet crime is not down. And then you look at cities that where the money was reallocated to children's services, providing resources that they need to thrive in communities. Those communities seen a significant drop in crime, and it wasn't because they gave the police department more money. It was because they gave the community the resources they needed, right? And so, but I think that there's that aspect
Of
of some
safety.
folks of
Yeah.
safety,
Yeah. So maybe
fear of
that
not being safe. Yeah.
fear, it's like, oh, you want to not fund a lot of police and then I won't be safe. And yeah, so
Right. No, no,
maybe
right.
even on
Right.
that level, right? Whether could be around kind of this safety from police or other kinds of economic safety, and somehow scared that going to lose something important. Yeah. Anything else you think might be going on for them? Anything else come to mind? Why they might vote in this way that triggers this pain for you?
That's the
That's the main one.
main ones that I can think
Okay.
of.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fear.
Fear.
Fear drives a lot of
Fear drives a
people
lot.
to.
Yeah.
Yes, it drives a lot.
Yeah.
I don't like living in fear. I don't think it serves us. It doesn't serve me, of course, or us or society. We just do what's right because it's right, and put justice first and people first. That we'll get all we'll need it.
If everybody's needs are being, at least there's opportunity for people to meet their needs, to be able to take care of themselves and not feel so intensely struggling and trying to survive, that does create safety and security for the whole
Yes.
community.
Yes.
If everybody feels like they matter, they're being cared about, there's access to somehow, some ways to access resources, right? So, but maybe for some folks, just seeing it differently and more, yeah, just kind of seeing it in other ways, not making those connections, and then therefore just feeling afraid. Like, wow, you're representing something that's like, maybe I'm gonna lose something here that really matters, and I'm scared because I
Yes.
want to feel
Yes.
safe. I want to feel safe, and at some really core, maybe primal level, yeah. And you said too, kind of like your ethnicity and other aspects of you that people can trigger off of. That are you thinking maybe that too? Like, oh, that too triggers like, oh, you're different than me, and therefore that doesn't feel safe in some way. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
That's right. That's right.
So in different
Absolutely.
ways, scared, just fearful, right? That we all can get fearful sometimes, and that out of those, and that deep, one of the basic, maybe the most basic need in a way to survive and be safe and secure, can get threatened, even though kind of logically, when by what you're saying, right? But still at some level, maybe that's what's getting triggered, at least in part. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
So it might
Yes.
be driving that behavior, and the way certain politicians or whatever might use fear to try to
Mm.
make people more afraid, right?
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
then kind of being like, well, I'll make sure you don't lose certain things that you really want to keep the way it is, or go back to the way it was, or something like that.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So how is that in this moment to again, not to agree with that way of thinking or acting or voting, or right, but just when you really just zero in on, maybe, at least for some of the folks, you're thinking maybe a lot of them getting scared at some level and wanting to feel safe, and just kind of reacting out of that need to try to feel safe? How is that to focus on just that part of it particularly?
Focusing on just that part of it makes me feel compassion. Makes me feel more compassion, empathetic to that. And so then it helps me not feel the anger and hurt so much, because it's not, of course, it's not about me.
Oh, yeah.
It's about
them wanting to
so
feel
I don't have to
safe.
take it on.
Right. And of course your feelings, going back to you for a moment, so we sort of hold both sides, like your feelings are coming from these incredibly beautiful needs of sharing and caring for each other and justice and everybody's well-being, mattering. And so there is like pain when you see that not happening, right? But then you can also at the same time, oh, here are these people that maybe at least part of what's going on is they get scared and they want to feel safe, even though they have maybe lots of money and lots of resources, power, but maybe at some level they're scared of losing that, and scared of things changing or not being in a way that they can feel okay. So yeah, both kind of as you hold the part of you that can hold both you and those beautiful needs you are championing in so many ways in the world, and this empathy for people who want to feel safe and secure and want the familiar, and they want that security. Yeah. So maybe just, what's it like to hold both simultaneously? Yeah. Those needs you're holding, and the needs that might be, some of them that might be going on for them. Yeah. So yeah, I think you said there's just kind of a softening in you. Yeah, kind of a softening. And the last step is just to see in this moment, I know you've done tons of thinking about this and you've been dealing with this for your whole political career. In this moment, as we do this together and kind of focus particularly on the emotions and the underlying needs of on both sides, you and them, do any images sort of come to your mind of like something new, some new insight, some new like idea of what you might do with that, or some like request of yourself or request of like the public or of certain anybody? Just sometimes these creative ideas just kind of pop in that, maybe we're percolating in the back of your mind, but then they kind of come forward. So does anything, just as we go through this together?
It helps me to be able to stay focused longer, better, easier when the sight of these types of images or words that I often hear makes me angry, sad, and all that. Coming to this place now, I don't have to stay in that place long, right? Understanding like, okay, it comes from a place of fear. And, everyone is on their own personal journey. It doesn't help them. And it definitely doesn't help me, for me to stay in a place that isn't forward, thoughtful, compassionate, loving. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't, but of course, it doesn't help me. So understanding that, being more empathetic and compassionate, I think can help me stay a lot more balanced.
Yeah, I was even keeled is the phrase of option, but like,
yeah, even keel. That's what I was thinking. I'm like, even keel. Let's just say balance. Yes, balance, even keel.
yeah,
Yes.
right. You're kind of more quickly coming back to your equilibrium so that you're in a centered place, able to just kind of be in your power with to be advancing what you really believe is going to be good for everybody, not just people struggling, but everybody you're wanting to care about, right?
Yes,
And
everybody.
so you can more,
That's right.
kind of finding that balance of knowing that's where you are, right? And can I share just an image that came into my mind, actually?
Sure.
Based essentially what you said, but there's a concreteness that came into my mind of, if you are interacting with a person or a group where maybe you sense that dynamic is going on, or you're messaging something out in a speaking or advertiser or something. But often when people feel that empathy, then there's an opening to hear things differently. So the image that just popped into my mind is that if it comes to you, if and when it comes to you, to really convey that empathy, and I imagine you do that at times, but it could be even more conscious at kind of from doing this together, that if people really feel that you're empathize, even if you don't agree with them, you're empathizing with why they're thinking and doing what they're doing, then often there's like something opens to the message I think you want to give, like, hey, I think what I'm offering might actually meet your needs better than the strategies that you're thinking of just, kind of supporting the kind of things you're supporting, right? But that sometimes we want to jump straight to, no, I want you to see it differently.
Yeah,
People they're
right.
not ready to see it differently because they need empathy for, in this case, the fear or whatever it is, the fear and the needs to feel secure or safe, or maybe justice in some ways for them is a need. Sometimes the needs are the same on both sides, but in a totally different way of looking at it. And your role, right, and your being in front of all people so much that when they feel that empathy from you, those that have disagreement with you and you with them, then often that opens to hear something new, something different. So that was the image that came, like just imagining
I
you
love that. I love it.
connecting without agreeing, right? Just connecting with, okay, I see you
That's right.
as a human being like me, that's what you're feeling this way. You got these needs. Okay, I got it. And then, here I have this other way I think might even help you, might serve you even better.
That's right. No, that's wonderful. And I think that it's what helps that's incredibly insightful and helpful. And I appreciate it because, I just think about these times that we're living in, and
scary times for everybody.
Scary times, right? It's just, and it's so divisive. And I think that when we acknowledge, that, hey, look, you know what, we're not going to agree on everything. I mean, my wife and I don't agree on everything, right? My parents and I don't agree on everything. None of us agree on everything, even people we love and sleep with every night, right? We don't agree on everything. So that's okay. It's okay for us to disagree. But if we're saying that we understand the threat of democracy, then we have to put those differences aside and unify under what we all believe in, is that, our democracy is what's important and we can't allow it to be bought, period. Let's unify around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. That's the message that you're really standing for. Okay. So thank you. I really enjoyed going there.
Thank
Place with you and your
Oh.
willingness to be vulnerable. I think it's really quite moving, and for people to really see and know that your spirit, your heart, your soul, that's behind all that you're doing. I'm really glad you came to share that with me and with who's listening, and wishing you just so much good luck and just lots and lots of support for those needs that you're carrying the vision. Yeah. So any last words you want to say before we end here?
I just thank you. I thank you for this opportunity to move through this process with me. And I think it's because of that, then, this helps me to be a better person, be a better candidate, better servant.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. So welcome. Okay. Well, we'll be in touch. I'll follow up with you, and just wishing you all the best.
Appreciate you. Blessings,
Okay.
John. Thank you.
Blessings. Take care. Thank you for listening to today's conversation. If you enjoyed this episode, I invite you to subscribe to the Mediate Your Life podcast and follow me on LinkedIn and Instagram at John Kinyon. You can also download the Mediate Your Life app to practice these principles in your own life. With love, empathy, and care, I'm John Kinyon. Thank you for listening.